Elizabeth Miller, simply known as Lee, had a life story that was particularly unique, and so when it came to capturing her biographically on screen, it was a challenging undertaking, not just because of who she was, but also because of how much she did. A war photographer and correspondent for Vogue magazine, a model, muse, wife, and mother, she lived several lives in just one lifetime, and did so to remarkable effect. So when movie star Kate Winslet took on the task of making her biopic, it resulted in the heartfelt drama that is Lee.
I was born determined. I was good at drinking, having sex, and taking pictures. And I did all three as much as I could.
Not everyone can believe this. Surely they can see what he is.
The question is, what are you going to do, Lee Miller?
Europe was at war, and I felt useless. I hear you're the woman to see about a job.
I am.
We don't hire older models.
I'm not a model anymore. I'd rather take a picture than be one.
It's just so creative.
Fully understanding or even describing Lee Miller is something that many would struggle to do, and that is probably a large part of her appeal. She is a mixture of fascinating contradictions shrouded in undeniable skill, and while exploring the life of a woman who made an historical contribution to capturing and preserving a visual record of World War II, what this film also does well is showcase a woman who was applaudibly unwilling to recognize or accept limitation.
Judita Da Silva, Arise Play, Nigeria.
Hi.
Hi. In this film, when you play Lee Miller, you show her in her interpersonal relationships to be sometimes quite emotionally blunt. But then in her work as a photographer, she has the ability to identify and tap into sensitivity and bring it out. Why do you think that seeming incongruity between her personal and professional selves existed?
Well, I think when you imagine that Lee was one of so few women who had the opportunity to go to the front line, she fought for that. She fought for the right to go. She got there. She still found she wasn't allowed into certain spaces. And I think that sense of determination and resilience that she had meant that she didn't have any time for bullshit. She wasn't gonna waste 1 minute. She wasn't gonna let any opportunity pass her by. More importantly than that, she was determined to be the first person where she could to find out about the next scoop. And so I think with that, there came a degree of bluntness and honesty. You know, Lee was somebody who believed in telling the truth, believed in revealing the truth, and not shying away from evil.
Yeah.
And because she had suffered such a terrible trauma as a child, I think it really it motivated her to fight for justice. You know, injustice was something that she simply couldn't tolerate, she couldn't live with. I'm actually quite a lot like that myself. Any injustice and I can't let it go. I'm like a dog with a bone, not even necessarily anything to do with myself, more often than not to do with other people. However, 80 years ago, this is a woman who was already redefining femininity to mean resilience and power and compassion, determination, strength. It's how we live our lives now. Yeah. You know, this is someone who was already doing this. And it's amazing to me. It's still, whenever I talk about this, I can't believe how Lee could easily have been full of malice, full of vengeance, full of, you know, that need for revenge. But she refused to be defined by the thing that had happened to her when she was a child. And that level of compassion and empathy for her was something that had become a part of her life. She'd had to learn how to overcome it. She'd had to learn how to live her life with intention and grace where she could. Yeah. And so I don't think she gave a shit about what people thought of her, because somehow that's how you get things done, quite honestly, especially as a woman.
send me to Europe.
I just want to do my part. I'm with Vogue magazine.
There's no women allowed in the press briefing.
You gotta be kidding me.
We don't send women to combat.
Well, that's a problem, because I'm here.
Why should the men get to decide?
I'm heading to the front.
That's not what I thought you were gonna say.
Ready to go?
Making Lee was a labor of love that was 7 years in the making. Lee Miller's own son, Anthony Penrose, had been sent scripts in the past about his mother's life, but turned them down because they failed to show the true breadth of his mother as a woman. But when Oscar winner Kate Winslet came along to not only star in the project but also produce it, the story she proposed to tell focused less on Lee, the model and former muse of artist and surrealist Man Ray, and more on Lee as a trailblazing female war photographer with both talent and tenacity, and a confidence that made her unapologetic about her ability and ambition.
You said in the press conference that there was just so much to Lee Miller's life. You had to find a significant chunk and laser in on that for the story. You're a filmmaker, you're seasoned at this, and you know the art of filmmaking. Do you feel that now that you've completed the film, you give the audience a full-body perspective on the totality of who Lee Miller was?
I really hope so. It was very hard to decide which decade of her life to really focus on. It became clear, after a process of almost elimination, which was really hard. Every aspect of Lee's life is rich and full and almost irresistible as a storyteller because she kept reinventing herself. But in order to give a full person to an audience, it was my job to really understand every single beat of her life up to that point, because who we are now is who we have become because of our past, because of where we come from, because of our childhood, because of things we may have experienced, because of how we've learned and grown. And learning how to make decisions for oneself and stand up for oneself. For Lee, those things were really hard won. And so I do really hope that after 7 years of research, my God, if I wasn't able to convey a real sense of who Lee truly was, then I haven't done my job properly.
You definitely have, but it's another great performance, Kate. Thank you so much for talking to us in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Lovely to meet you.
Lee Miller was complicated. She drank too much, and by her son's admission, she wasn't the best of mothers. She also shockingly never told him about what she had done during the war. Only after her death did Anthony discover his mother's archive of photographs and piece together the story of one of the most significant parts of her life that she never shared with him. But through those photographs, he was able to learn and understand more about who she was, and pass it on so that now, through this film, the audience hopefully will as well.
Leave her alone!
Bad things do happen to some of us girls.
You have secrets. Many that you'll never share.
Stop! Who cares? Nobody saw them. You didn't print them. I fought for them, Lee!
It's not hard enough.
No.
Even when I wanted to look away, I knew I couldn't. There are different kinds of wounds. Not just the ones you can see.